Hello again, my little conscripts, and welcome to another Mordian Glory video. In today's episode, we shall be casting our ever-critical eye over another Imperial Guard 10th edition datasheet. This time, we are going to be deep diving the Hellhound, and I have a bold statement to make. I think the Hellhound is a lot better than people are giving it credit for. In fact, I think the Hellhound is a full-blown hidden gem in the new codex. Controversial statement, because we've seen a lot of tier lists out there which have put this thing at like C tier or B tier. You know what? I think it might be A tier or above. I'm going to have to back that up. So without further ado, let's not mess around any further. Let's mount up, roll out, burn them out, and dive right into this thing. As is tradition, let us begin with a cheeky gander at the stat line. The Hellhound has a movement of 10. That's pretty standard issue in the Guard motor pool. But it's its defensive profile, which I think is very, very strong. It's toughness 10 with a 2+ save and 11 wounds. This is something which I think a lot of people have overlooked about the Hellhound. It's actually quite a significant change. In previous editions, this thing was T9 at a 3+ save. And so it was relatively fragile. It was just a chimera which gave up transport capacity for a slightly better gun. But since 10th edition, this thing has actually been really up armored. And now it's, like I said, got that T10, that 2+ save. A lot of people still haven't cottoned on to this. A lot of people still think that, and you look at the Hellhound and you just assume that it's got a 3+ save. But having a 2+ is a really big deal. Firstly, a 2+ save with the benefit of cover is very hard to crack. If you're getting hit by an AP-3 weapon, you're still going to have a 4+ save. And anyone who's faced anyone who can spam 4+ saves, whether they're, especially if they're vulnerable saves, we should say, things like Custodes and other armies like that, trying to just bulldoze your way through a 4+ save can sometimes feel like a really difficult thing to do. Because 4+ saves, rarely do they feel like they're actually a 50-50 chance. Often, you find that you pass the 4-ups when it's really important, and you fail the 4-ups when it doesn't really matter. You'll pass the 4-up versus the plasma gun or plasma cannon, and you'll fail it versus something that is just like 1 damage. So 2+ save with benefit of cover, very, very good. Also, it gives you a 5+ save if it was AP-4, like melter guns. Speaking of melter guns, T10 comes in here. Most what I would class special weapon anti-tank, things like melter guns and their equivalents, are strength 9. And so being T10 means that unless someone's shooting you with a las cannon or an equivalent, you are going to be wounded on a 5+. And that becomes a lot less certain. That becomes a lot less guaranteed. People are a lot less likely to chance it on a 5 than they would on, let's say, like a 4+ against the Chimera with its toughness 9. So it's got a really good defense profile, which makes this thing annoyingly difficult to deal with. The Hellhound might not look quite as big and chunky as a Leman Russ, but in the vast majority of circumstances, it's actually as tough as a Leman Russ. Think about it. Leman Russ gets hit by a melter gun. He's 5 to wound. In cover, it's got a 5+ save. Exactly the same with the Hellhound. So it's near peer to a Russ in durability. And Russes, they're not impossible to kill, but you do need to use dedicated anti-tank to kill them. And if people are putting dedicated anti-tank into things like your Hellhound, because they're kind of forced to, like it's going to keep going at them, then that means that they're not putting those same guns into things like your Rogel Dawn Commanders and into your Leman Russes and your other main tanks. Rounding out the stat line, we've got leadership of 7+. That's okay. And OC3, and that is good. Again, this is a jump up from the Hellhound's like base Chimera chassis. Because the Chimera is only OC2, but the Hellhound is OC3. And having that extra pip of OC can swing objectives, but it also means that often you can out-OC other people's lighter vehicles, other people's dedicated transports, other people's light tanks, those things which, you know, they think, oh, well, they're OC2, I must be OC2, and you can be like, actually, I'm OC3, I'm a Hellhound. So don't underestimate the OC3 here. It's actually a little bit of it could be a bit of a curveball if your opponent's not ready for it. So that covers the Hellhound's defensive stat line, but what about its weapons and war gear? Let's get into what this thing comes equipped with. Its basic loadout consists of a heavy flamer and an inferno cannon with armored tracks. You can, if we come over here to the weapon options, swap out the inferno cannon for a chem cannon or a melter cannon, and you can swap out the heavy flamer for a heavy bolter or a multi-melter. You can also just slap a hunter killer missile on this thing for free. Looking at these different weapons, we'll start off with the turret ones. You've got the chem cannon, the inferno cannon, and the melter cannon. The inferno cannon, we'll start off with that one because that's what it comes with, is an 18-inch range, 2d6 shot, strength 6, AP minus 2, damage 1. That AP minus 2 is very tasty because AP minus 2 and it ignores cover and it auto hits. A lot of people think that the Inferno Cannon is AP1. I think in previous editions it basically was AP1. And they haven't quite caught up to the fact that this thing is actually AP2. It's crazy. And yeah, I know I keep saying people haven't caught up to stuff and we're like 2 years into 10. But trust me, I fire Hellhounds at people consistently and through the index, through the codex, and people go, okay, so it's what, AP minus 2, AP minus 1? And you're like, nope, AP2. They're like, what? So yeah, it catches people off guard all the time. The AP minus 2 is really nice with ignores cover. Very, very, very good. The chem cannon, we'll look at this one next, is shorter ranged with less shots. And it looks like it's got less strength, but to be fair, it is anti-infantry 2+. It also auto hits. It's also AP minus 2, but it does damage 2. In theory, the chem cannon is a bit of a marine killer, a bit of a anti-elite infantry killer. And you'd think that with the current meta that we seem to be in, that would be perfect. But the low number of shots and the low range, I don't like it. Even with the anti-infantry 2+, even with the damage 2, I pretty much always pick the Inferno Cannon because I'd rather have the 18-inch range, and we'll come back to why in a moment. Well, obviously, it's just generally good, but there's a few other tricks. And I'd rather the Strength 6 because that means I can actually threaten vehicles. Because a Hellhound will wound most vehicles in the game on 5s. And with AP minus 2 and ignores cover, you'd be surprised how often a Hellhound can chip 2, 3, 4 wounds off an enemy vehicle if you get a bit lucky. The Melter Cannon is a very different beast. This thing has Blast, it has Melter 4, that's an incredible amount of melt damage. That means if you're within half range, which is 9 inches, if you get a wound through, you do 4 damage plus the d6, which is really good. It's also Strength 9, AP minus 4. Overall, the Melter Cannon isn't a bad option. Low number of shots is a bit annoying when facing off against vehicles. But in an elite infantry meta, and a generally quite an infantry heavy meta, you've got to remember that typically this is probably going to be D3+1 or D3+2. And even though it only hits on 4s, if you start telling this thing to take aim, it can hit on 3s. So it's not bad, actually. We're in an anti-elite infantry meta, and interestingly, I think the Melter Cannon is better at dealing with elite infantry than things like the Chem Cannon. It's not a bad gun at all, but it's not what makes the Hellhound secretly broken. Having to roll to hit is even with orders, is actually a surprisingly big fly in the ointment. And I know I'm being a little bit coy at the moment. I know I'm blue balling you all slightly, but trust me, I will get into the details of what I'm talking about in a few minutes. We're talking about like advanced tactics with the Hellhound when we've covered the summary. Trust me, the Melter Cannon's not bad, but we want to be able to automatically hit. And out of those 2 auto-hitting weapons, we're going to be looking at the Inferno Cannon, because that's just overall just better. Taking that in mind, if you have to pick between the secondary weapons, the multi-melter, the heavy bolter, and the heavy flamer, again, I would go for the heavy flamer. Okay, because it auto-hits. So the go-to loadout of the Hellhound in my opinion, it's the exact thing it comes with: a heavy flamer and an Inferno cannon. Moving on to the abilities of the Hellhound. Firstly, we've got Deadly Demise D6. This is actually surprisingly high considering that it's not a big vehicle. Most things like Chimera chassis vehicles are like D3 Deadly Demise, like Rhinos are Deadly Demise D3. It's the similar size to those vehicles. It's because traditionally the Hellhound has always exploded easier. So in older editions, it used to Deadly Demise on like a 4 plus or a 5 plus. It used to always blow up, like always blow up. Now it only Deadly Demise on a 6 like everyone else. It just does an explosion of essentially a vehicle that is one tier, one size larger than it is. As for its unique ability, this is one of the things which has made the Hellhound very popular traditionally. And what it does is it removes cover from an enemy unit. If you hit one enemy unit, you can pick that unit to not have cover. If you hit multiple enemy units, you have to pick one of them to not have the benefit of cover. This could be quite good because if you line it up correctly, you can remove cover from an enemy unit and then the rest of your army can potentially pile in on that thing. You can also remove a lot of abilities that rely upon your opponent having cover. For example, if you're facing off against a mirror match recon guard, so it's guard on guard and you're facing off against recon guard, if you remove the benefit of cover, that means they can't get the second part of that detachment rule. So removing cover is quite a big deal, and it just generally makes it easier for you to kill things. Just to wrap up the datasheet summary, the Hellhound does degrade, so when it gets to 1 to 4 wounds, it does get -1 to hit, but you don't care about that because you're going to have all weapons that automatically hit. And as for its keywords, it has Vehicle, Smoke, Imperium, Squadron, Hellhound, and Astra Militarum. That summarizes the Hellhound's datasheet. And we've also covered the recommended loadouts for this thing, that Inferno Cannon and the Heavy Flamer. But I did say we were going to circle back round some advanced tactics. And I did say at the beginning of this video that I thought the Hellhound was a hidden gem and maybe even a bit broken. And I've got to back that up. I've got to justify that. The thing is, it all comes down to the Hammer of the Emperor detachment. Now, when I first saw the Hammer of the Emperor detachment, I wasn't very impressed. I thought it wasn't very good. But I have since heavily revised that opinion, and now I think it might be one of the best detachments, if not the best detachment in the codex. And a big part of that, there's two big parts of it. Firstly, you've got the ability to auto advance 6 inches. Surprisingly, that is awesome. You'd think, oh, but you wouldn't want to like be getting your tanks closer to the enemy. It turns out movement is just wins games. It turns out movement is just so good. So being able to auto advance 6 inches makes your vehicles go way faster than you think. This isn't a 10-inch move. At a whim, this is a 16-inch move guaranteed. Think of it this way: how many times have you needed to get like a 3-inch advance and you've rolled like a 1 or a 2 and you just can't quite get it? Now you just get on there. How many times has there been an objective that if only you could get a 5 or a 6 on your advance, you could get to it and do something, and then you just don't. You get like a 4 and you're 1 inch short all the time, right? Being able to guarantee an auto 6 advance is really good. But the real sweetness lies in the stratagems. This is where you've got two that come together really nicely. You've got a stratagem that lets you move through terrain as if it wasn't there, so you're just breaking through all the terrain. And you've got one which allows you to shoot after you have advanced. So you can go 16 inches through terrain and still shoot. A lot of the time, that is going to be enough. You're going to be able to go 16 inches, and that's going to help you get the angle. But I've played Hammer of the Emperor, and I've chatted to a few people who have played Hammer of the Emperor, and you find that sometimes 16 inches just isn't quite enough, especially on very terrain-dense boards like WTC terrain boards and UKTC terrain boards. And that makes up the majority of terrain in the UK. Most people are playing on those two styles. There's a bit of GW, but interestingly, most of it is either UKTC or WTC. Very dense, lots of ruins, and 16 inches sometimes is enough, but surprisingly often it's not quite enough. This is where the Hellhound's secret weapon, hidden gem status comes from. Because those other vehicles, You could tell them to move, move, move and go 19 inches. And then you're definitely going to have enough. 19 inches gets you the angles. But then you've got to hit on 4s. And if your opponent's got some kind of smoke or some kind of -1 to hit ability inbuilt or stratagem, you might be hitting on 5s. And it's like, I can go 19 inches and maybe I'll hit them, but maybe I'm just going to throw a tank away. The Hellhound doesn't need take aim. This is why I said even though the Melter Cannon isn't a bad weapon, you're going to go for the Inferno Cannon and you're going to go for the Heavy Flamer because the Hellhound can move 10, move for +3, so it goes to 13, and auto advance for 6, that's 19 inches, and then you spend the CP so it can advance and shoot, and it can just burn the enemy. Burn them to death. And let me tell you, I was at a Super Major recently. If I'd had the ability to do that, even with just one Hellhound, I was running Recon Detachment, I wasn't running Hammer. If I had the ability to do that with even just one Hellhound, it would have made a huge difference in all of my games. Because we're in this meta now of Eldar. We're in this meta now of very, very fast moving, very assault orientated infantry. And sometimes it's custodians, but a lot of the times it's things that are a little bit more fragile. A lot of the time it's things which are more marine based profiles rather than Terminator or custodians based profiles. A lot of the time even a lot of it's Eldars, like I said, a lot of it's T3. So just being able to go woo straight forward. You can go through terrain, 2 CP. You can go through terrain. What's 1 CP to go through terrain, 1 CP to be able to advance and shoot. Go all the way through everything you want to do, and then just start burning. And be able to go 19 inches and be able to hit full send, no worries whatsoever, is so damn powerful. But wait, there's more. This is where the Hellhound's second hidden gem. That's right. It's not just one hidden gem that the Hellhound's got. It's got a whole goddamn necklace of them.
This is getting out of hand. Now there are 2 of them.
We're an assault-based meta. So a lot of the time, people are going to try and deal with these things, they're going to deal with threats by doing them in melee combat. But if you move near a Hellhound, it's going to overwatch you. And it can do it at the start of the move. It can, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong down the comment section, but I believe you can overwatch when someone starts a move, when someone ends a move, when someone starts a charge, when someone deep strikes in, and very importantly, when someone disembarks from a transport. That last one is the one I'm not 100% certain on, so I would appreciate some clarification from the community. But I believe you can. That is huge.
That's what she said.
Imagine the following scenario. In your turn, you've gone full send with the Hellhound. You've gone through, you've started burning the crap out of the enemy. That then puts the enemy in a really, really difficult catch-22 position. If they try and move away from the Hellhound, it can overwatch them. They don't even need to be charging. They don't even need to be getting out of transports. You can just go before you even move. So it can force people to do charges from further away than they want to, because you've got an 18-inch range on that flamer. It forces people to do charges from further away than they want to. It stops people from being able to get out of dodge if they want to. And it just generally creates a dilemma for your opponent. And remember, you want to create dilemmas for your opponent, not problems. Problems have solutions. Dilemmas have no good choice. And I just want to remind you guys that this isn't something that I have come up with from a theory craft, theory hammer point of view. This is something that has been based on experience. Not only mine, but I was also chatting to another player at the Manchester GT, and he said that he thinks Hellhounds might be one of the best units in Hammer of the Emperor right now. He took 1 in his list, and after 5 games of Hammer, he said he's going to put 3 in. He needs more. He said minimum of 2. He might push it to 3 to see how it goes. But 1 was so good, he's going out there and he's going to add 3 more to his collection no matter what, and he's definitely going to be running at least 2 going forward. So this is something which you don't see in a lot of Hammer lists, but those of us who have flirted with it have started to believe. I think that the Hellhound meta is incoming. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. Do you think that Hellhounds have got a place? Or do you think there are other units that maybe do better in Hammer? And how do you think Hellhounds stack up against something like Krieg and Krieg heavy weapon teams with flamers inside Tauroxes? They are more expensive, but they do also have shoot on death. So there's a little bit of an interesting question there. Let us know which one you think you would go for. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.